Hello, welcome to the Joystick Frequency. It's a video game podcast that doubles as a video game book club where you remember just by listening in. I'm your host, Trent. Joining me are my co-host, Walker.
Hello.
And Brady.
Hello.
And for the second time ever for our 20th episode special, we have a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Purplesmurf.
Hello.
How's it going? This is your warm welcome.
What's it like being a purple Smurf instead of a blue one?
Well, it's a bit like being a zombie if you know Smurf lore.
Oh shit. I didn't realize it was actual Smurf lore.
Yep.
My Smurf lore comes from the really shitty old movie, live-action Smurf movie they made back in like the early 2000s.
Unironically, I had the nickname and like user tag before I even found out that there was Smurf lore related to Purple Smurfs, so it just made it all the better.
Hell yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
it turned out there was an entire Smurfs episode called The Purple Vi, and it's about a little purple fly that bites the Smurf, and it turns into a zombie movie.
Oh my god. What?
Yep.
It's like I need Googling purple Smurf lore.
Feel free to go in a little more into this Smurf because this can be our intro, easy peasy.
That's basically all it is. Like it's a fully animated episode. There's a purple fly that randomly bites one of the Smurfs, and they become purple and feral, and they bite other Smurfs, and they too turn purple. And it's a zombie episode, but for the Smurfs.
A purple Smurf usually hops around with gritted teeth, making nap, nap, nap noises and searching for his or her next victim.
They basically get turned into, I think it's, Zhang-Chi, the, like, hopping Chinese vampires or something.
Hell yeah.
That's fucking wild, man. Alright, well. Here at the Joystick Frequency, we normally go into everyone's months and what we've been playing since the last podcast. However, one of us wasn't in the last podcast, so Smurf, we'll go ahead and start with you. Well, what kind of games you've been playing this month, just relatively recently, at least?
Pretty well exclusively Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and actually also the original Final Fantasy VII again, because it made me want to go back and play it again.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. So you're going to have proper understanding of the source material.
Yep. At least as well as my smooth brain can recall events.
Yeah, another reason I brought Smurf in is because none of us three, being me, Walker, and Brady, have actually played the first original Final Fantasy VII. So I wanted to bring someone here that's at least played both of them, so to get like kind of a bridge between those as well, since it's like been such a revolutionary game. So,
What consoles have you played it on?
For the original FF7, I played that on an original PlayStation back in the day, initially. Borrowed from a friend. That was the first Final Fantasy game I ever beat. Then it got ported over to Steam, and it had a new life brought to it because the modding community is killer for it. So now you can make the game actually look kind of pretty and not like jank Lego people waddling around.
But there's some charm to that. At least that's my understanding of the love.
There is, but like there's only so much tension and drama you can get out of like Sephiroth intimidating and killing people whenever he's a Lego man flying around.
No. Look, man, I've seen Lego Movie.
To the degenerates out there, you can only get so much enjoyment from Tifa's triangle tits before you're like, but let's update the graphics a bit.
I mean, to be fair, they looked fantastic once you're in battle mode.
Alright, let's see. Brady, let's pick you next. Brady, what have you been doing this month?
Let's see. Other than Final Fantasy Rebirth, I have been playing a little bit of Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Ooh.
Just picked it up again. Felt like a change of pace coming from Final Fantasy VII. Wanted to do something maybe a little more fantasy or like medieval, less different vibe. Wanted a little change of pace, so I picked up AC Valhalla. I hadn't played it in a long time, and I never really finished it the first time, so I wanted to give it a shot. It's fun. It's very much a modern Assassin's Creed game.
Sure is.
But shit, I get to be a Viking and kill people and raid. I don't have that many complaints. It's fun.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that one yet. I kind of started my my replay of all the Assassin's Creed to 100% them, like, right as that one came out. So I, like, kind of played the first, like, maybe couple hours of it, and then bounced off of it to go towards some of the older ones, and was, I'll be coming back to it eventually, but...
It's incredibly long.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And it's, like, either going to love it or hate it, because it's very grindy. Like, just going and riding your horse around trying to get things, but it's a simple, familiar, comforting feedback loop, gameplay loop, so it's like a comfort food, but video games.
Exactly. You run around, you collect stuff, you raid.
Yeah. I ride a horse, I sail a boat. Simple as.
I paid for an aesthetic DLC for that game. I paid like $4 to turn my horse into a wolf because I thought that was cool.
Oh, yeah. I wish I was someone that had the disposable income to just pump a shit ton of money into dumb cosmetics like that. Because I hate the business practice because it's cancer, but God, some of the skins look cool.
Look,
that's fair.
I'm not saying I should have dumped the money into it. I just did. That is $5 I will never get back.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't made purchases like that before.
As somebody light on cash, I've made many a poor decision along those lines anyway.
You didn't see me in AC Odyssey sailing around with a rainbow flag sail.
Hell yeah.
Hey, it's Greece. You got to represent. Big time ally, baby.
All right, well, Walker, let's pass it on over to you, unless you were done, Brady?
Yeah, I'm all done.
Okay, yeah, let's pass it on over to you, Walker. What have you been doing?
I've been playing a smattering of stuff. I've started 2 RPGs. I've restarted, I booted up Elden Ring, did like achievement grinding and New Game Plus in that. It's just been a barrage of stuff, but the main one I want to focus on is Stardew Valley got an update, and it's fantastic.
Oh, what? God, we lost him again, guys.
It's so good. So, for a little bit of, background, this is a game that came out in 2016, and the developer is one dude, and he is still actively putting out updates for this game. He's announced that he's working on another game, and putting a lot of love and effort into that, but has put out a whole new update for Stardew Valley that originally he announced was mostly just going to be mod support, but upon booting it up, it's entirely different. Like, it's not entirely different, but he's added so much extra stuff to the game. He's built in a new type of loot box. He's added a bunch of new festivals and mechanics to the game, which in Stardew Valley, there's a lot of it's kind of a comforting repetition of just being able to know, hey, I'm going to go do this thing today and just run around in the mines and fight monsters and collect ore or whatever so that I can build up and make more money. It's just kind of that constant gameplay loop. But there's always distractions with, new festivals in town, new characters have different events going on. There's a whole multiplayer aspect which changes the game again in an entirely different way. And this new update has just done so much in going through and revamping and giving a lot more life to a game that has been around for ages, and it seems to have landed really well. The fandom is losing their minds constantly. There's new masteries for skills which unlock new things and new challenges. I think at this point, Em and I started a new farm, and we are, I'm going to say probably about 15 hours in at this point into this new farm. And
we're way more than that.
Way more than 15 hours?
Way more.
Way more than 15 hours, according to Em. And we're still finding new stuff around every corner. So it's been an absolute blast. I genuinely think if no one else here has played Stardew Valley, you should. I've been trying to get Trent to play for years, but he refuses on principle.
You should play Stardew Valley.
You should play Stardew Valley.
I'll add it to my next year's list because this year's already filled.
That's mostly been it. Outside of that, I've been going through, I mentioned last time that I booted up Persona 3 Reload. That is an incredible game. I think I'm 15 to 20 hours in on that. And I think I've just barely got past the first real major post-tutorial boss. So that's fun. There's so much game there.
Yeah. Assassin's Creed, Personas, if there's something they're known for, it's game length.
Yup. My understanding is it is a 100-hour plus game normally, and then there's... I think this is similar for most of the Persona franchise, but the whole game is on like a calendar system. So every day you can only do like 2 or 3 set activities that you want to, and then really from there build out like your character's like social stats, different links, building relationships with other people. And if you don't do it a very specific way, you're not going to get a true ending or get like the most out of the game. So you have to go back and replay a 100-hour plus game and do it on a set schedule to try to figure out or find like the best ending stuff. So it's been very, very good. I'm enjoying the characters that have been built out so far. But I am stressed again. It feels like I'm back at school. I'm studying for tests and shit.
The calendar system and just the sheer game length is the main reason I haven't gotten into that series, although I've really wanted to. I get stressed as soon as it starts, like, now you gotta do time management for this very meticulous thing.
Luckily, at least at the point where I'm at now in Reload, there's a lot of good options to where if you flub something on like one of your activities, like if you make a wrong like dialogue choice, they offer a rewind function to go back to before that and redo it again, so you don't just like waste that time. As well as a couple other like quality of life things. And at this point right now, it doesn't feel like I've done anything wrong. Now, I'll come back to you in 80 plus hours and let you know if I have done something fucking horribly wrong, if I didn't talk to the butterfly and it kills me in the third act when it becomes God. You know how it is. So,
or other horrible monstrosity that I don't want to describe.
And it's a Persona game, so by what I've heard through the grapevine, that could be a plot point.
It very well could be.
Yeah. Surprise, it's turning into a Silent Hill monster. Oops.
Oopsie.
You'll see him in homeroom tomorrow.
That has been the majority of my gameplay sessions. Em and I have also been going back through Mario Odyssey, and she's been playing Princess Peach Showtime. A lot of games. I could probably talk for a while, but I want to pass the mic over. What have you been playing for a little bit now, Trent?
Other than I think I spoke of that, I had started and had gotten through a good portion of the Outer Wilds. I finally finished it, as well as the DLC to it, and my god, I can see why Walker was arguing on a technicality for trying to get it as Game of the Year last year, because it's been 4 months already, and it's the best game I've been playing this year. That game is really, really good.
I foam at the mouth every time I think of that game. It's so good.
It's got a vibe similar to Tunic in that knowledge is the power in those type of games. And if you know what the mechanics of the game can do, you can just right off the bat go off and do all these crazy things and solve all these puzzles that are very intuitive as you're going through the game, where you're reading along and you realize, oh, I've had this ability the entire game and didn't know I could use it in this way to achieve this goal. And then you go through and you're thinking of every place back that you have to backtrack to now, because you're like, I could do it there, I could do it there, I could do it there. Who knows what's hiding behind every corner? And it's a very good game about having to go and gather as much knowledge as you can, so you have all the pieces and can figure out what exactly is going on. Plus, they throw in a time loop for the game, which is my bread and butter right there. So I was eating good right there. That game is like... Well, we were talking about it off recording. We might have to do a spoiler episode for just that game next time we get into the doldrums, possibly, because it's definitely worth it.
A true spoiler podcast, because let me just say, you can only really play this game once without knowing anything about it, and once you do kind of crack that seal and start learning about it, you can never play that game for the first time ever again. It's like Trent was saying, most of the unlocks are knowledge-based, so once you have that knowledge, you can just blitz through everything. And that joy of discovering through the chaos going on around you is just magnificent.
Yeah, like there's literally an achievement for beating the game in one cycle because you can do that. There are also like a bunch of little unique twists here and there that, for instance, there's a very specific thing that it wants you to do that it guides you to start the time loop, essentially. In your first life, if you don't start the time loop there, it won't activate, and if you like kill yourself before that activation, it gives you a game over screen, just like, haha, yeah, congrats, you beat the game, let's go. Alright, move on to the next one kind of thing. Even though you're like sitting there silent and like, I think I did something wrong. There's also very unique ways you can actually break the game that are very fun. As well as it's just, they got a really unique solar system that they've made with very unique planets and stuff like that. It's really fun to go and explore these locations while you're trying to figure out this ancient civilization from before your time kind of thing. It's a very unique game. I really hope that who made this game? Was it Tiny Build, or am I thinking of something else?
You're thinking of something else. So this was made by Mobius Digital. I believe it's their only official game that they've put out so far.
Yeah, I'm on the lookout for the next game because it is swung for the fences and hit it out of the park for all three of us. So I imagine if they continue that level of dedication and polish and just care that they put into this game, like their next game could be even better. So I'm looking forward to that. Other than the Outer Wilds, my Baldur's Gate playthrough with actually Smurf here and Zelker, we are getting very close to the end to where I can finally talk about the ending to the game with everyone. We're like so close. I think, Smurf, you said something like we had like 4 or 5 sessions left probably.
Ideally, if we don't do dumb things in combat.
Look, things can and will go wrong.
Yeah,
I'm wild magic, so dumb things in combat is not
Unheard
a guarantee.
You did turn me into a cat.
Your safety.
You did turn me into a cat. I was
no.
simultaneously pleased and disappointed.
We were doing the Shadow Hearts dungeon in Act 2, the one where you have to fight the shadow versions of yourself. And I just mid-fight, I turned 4 of us, one of each of the party, but I turned everyone into the party, but one not the full human party, not the full shadow party, into an animal during that fight, and it was a really fun fight.
That is a game I still need to finish.
But yeah, we've gotten all the Netherstones now, so we're heading towards the. We just got a couple things left. I think we have Asterian's place, and then after that, it's in-game stuff.
Yeah, so, Asterian's, I think, the last main quest that you need before closing it out.
Gotcha.
I'm excited to finish that. I played a couple games of Helldivers. That game is growing on me a little more than the original throw me in just to die attempt that I got from my first time playing it. And other than that, Predecessors in game preview right now. It's a MOBA that our friend Nathan has gotten me into. Been playing a little bit of that, and it's fun, and it looks like it could actually really be one to maybe rival Smite and League later on down the road, because it's got a unique perspective, and vertical gameplay is actually a thing for it. So I don't know. That little twist might be enough to actually at least give it a mainstay to where it becomes like a long-standing MOBA. Well, we'll have to see. And then the other one I will discuss whenever we get to the main portion has been I'm back into Destiny 2, guys. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why are we talking about this almost 10-year-old game on the podcast? But it shucked me back in, I have to say.
I literally just spoke about Stardew Valley. You're fine.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
As long as you don't try to make a game of the year.
Well, Final Shape is coming out. If we start including expansions or DLCs in this next one, who knows?
That wasn't at all related to the year it came out, but cool.
All right. Well, I think with that, I guess we just go and start talking about some of the the main games that we came to talk about. So I guess, Walker, let's go as in depth as you can about the Princess Peach game, since we know that one's relatively new. What?
Jeez, I did not prepare for this like I should have. It's been good, actually. I know it received a lot of shit online, but I think that's just because, God forbid, a game be made that, isn't hard, per se. Basically, from what I've seen of Princess Peach Showtime so far, it is a fun and cute amalgamation of a bunch of different minigames and mechanics that the developers have built out based on different outfits and stereotypes. So you have one that comes to mind right off the top of my head is the figure skater. Basically, the whole premise is Peach is on her way to the theater to see some fun plays, right? Woo! She gets inside, and the traditional Mario villain, like Mario-style villain, steps out, goes, "Woo, I'm about to ruin your day," yells at all the toads get thrown out, Peach loses her crown, suddenly everyone thinks Peach is just a normal person and not a queen anymore, and it's fantastic. And now she's got to go through and fix all of the different play performances that are going on by inhabiting the different main characters of the play. So you have, a swordsman character who has the base sword mechanic, can run around, attack, and like dodge around enemies. You've got a cowgirl Peach who, similar thing, she has a lot of lasso-based attacks that she uses. She's able to whip up barrels and launch them at other people, along with like a side-scrolling horse riding sections where you're able to like hunt down other the specific outlaws who have taken over this aspect of the play. And it really just kind of picks a huge scoop of these thematic characters and spreads them out throughout the game. And it's level-based. You go through, each level has its own devoted character, and I think there's 3 is what I've seen so far. I think there is 3 for each character, culminating in like a final push where you go and rescue the spirit of the actor who like is supposed to be encompassing this character in the first place from the big bad. And yeah, it's been fun. I really can't go too much more into depth outside of that. I think each level, so basically when you come into the game, you have access to 4 different levels, and once you clear all 4 of those out, you're able to do a boss fight. And when you beat the boss fight, you can proceed further up and up and up through this playhouse and just proceed up to the next floor, which has more rooms with different plays that you can go through and interact with, all culminating in a final boss and building up and building up and building up. And so far, the boss fights, while not hard, have been pretty enjoyable. They've got some fun plays on items and plays that you would see, or things that you would see at a playhouse. And yeah, we haven't finished the game yet, but it's just been like an enjoyable time to, kick back at the end of the day and pop on something that isn't, the main conflict isn't going to be world shaking. And instead it's just kind of a fun little romp.
I think the biggest thing about this is like whenever you see a game coming from the Mario universe, you expect this big spectacle that's going to be like Game of the Year contender kind of thing, and so they're like, oh, Peach is like one of the closest characters to Mario that's not Luigi, so everyone's like flipping out about this game that's like supposed to be just a little kids game for like little girls who just want to have fun and go off about it.
Exactly.
There was definitely a lot of beef that I saw about it online, and like you guys said, the gist I gathered out of it is, oh no, God forbid they make an age-appropriate game for their target demographic.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I'm a staunch defender that there should be more Peach games. I think Peach is a fun character that you can use more often. Em and I have been rooting for the sequel to Mario Odyssey to be Super Peach Odyssey, because I think that would be fun. They built her up with a very similar style character that you get as a companion in Mario Odyssey. I think it'd just be fun to play around. But, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with what was created and put out here. Definitely does not deserve any of the hate it's receiving online. Yeah, I think that about covers, realistically, everything I wanted to talk about with Peach. Let me see if there's... Okay, yeah, just did a real quick check. I really think I covered everything I wanted to. The only thing additional would be there's a large variety of characters that you can get to play as. Each has their own unique movesets and attacks and different kind of gameplay mechanics. So you've got your Baker Peach, who most of her minigames revolve around genuinely like decorating cakes based off of different designs that you get. Or, you know, you have your water levels, which are themed through a mermaid outfit. Again, it's just cute and fun, I think.
All right, well, I guess we're going to go ahead and start talking about Destiny a little bit, guys. Hey, guys, they may have fixed it. It's a fun game now, or at least their original plans for it to be an MMO at the beginning are like finally here. Like there's finally enough content for it like to be kind of like MMO-ish, where you can completely do something different every day now, and like not run out of content by the end of the week almost. As long as you're doing weekly stuff. I will say, however, the playing catch up on it definitely is a bit of a grind. Gear-wise, not so much. The main thing that it's been like you have to play catch-up on is getting all the quests done so you can get access to all the exotic weapons, get access to all the raids and dungeons that are locked behind certain quest progression, as well as following the story. Which, by the way, the story may be coming to an end pretty soon with the Final Shape update coming out later in June, which it's going to be a stacked month already. But I've actually been enjoying it again for the first time. I know I took a break from it and came back like a year later, started playing it, didn't enjoy it. And then this time, I took like 2 years off and I came back and started enjoying it. And like enough people of my friends have been getting back into it as well that we have a small little raid party going as well. So we've been throwing a couple raids in during the week, and it's actually very enjoyable. And judging from what's going to happen in the Final Shape with a little bit of a mixture of the light and the darkness kind of thing to make this new prismatic class, we're going to be able to like do some level of customization that's hasn't been done in Destiny before, with being able to like choose grenades from different subclasses with your super from a different subclass, with your melee from a different subclass and stuff like that. I'm very excited for this next DLC to drop. As far as playing the game regularly, we've gotten access to a couple new planets. We had a big Taken planet that's called the Throne World. That's, if you've done ever anything with the Hive in Destiny, it's got that aesthetic, but everything has like a thick layer of green fog around it, and it's very ominous, where you go and take down another one of the worm gods in Savathûn. And then we've also gotten this new like kind of techno and like neon lights kind of city in Neomuna on Neptune now as a planet. And you have these people called Cloud Striders there that are like the defenders of the Neomunan people, and they ride hoverboards, flying skateboards all over the place. So now people have flying skateboards and they're going all over the place, and just like the amount of distance you're able to cover in the air with that is unrivaled to almost anything, as well as you get access to the Strand class from that city, which gives you more aerial abilities. it's all like that class feels almost exclusively about just staying in the air for as long as possible and looking flashy while doing it. I have not gotten the hoverboard yet, and it's made me kind of sad. I'm waiting for one to drop for me.
Oh, it's locked behind a drop?
There was a guaranteed way to do it if I would have started playing a little earlier. I also haven't asked about it to the one guy that, like, anytime I think about it, he's not on. The one guy that I've like been asking all the tips and tricks for.
Gotcha.
So I'll have to run it by him to see if there is a way I can get it right now, because so far it's just like, oh boy, I hope this thing drops. So we also getting introduced to the villain of the entirety of Destiny, called the Witness, which apparently caused the events that predate the original Destiny. He's started introducing a couple of the enemies that are tied to his faction, kind of thing, including these. The best way I can describe it is if you took like almost like digital and like very square. What's the word for it? Like how like tessellation, I guess, would be the best way to describe it. If you took like tessellation and made it an aesthetic, that's pretty much what it is almost. You have these guns with this like the square cylinder that will start turning as it goes down the barrel of the gun, and leave the little slats as if you just had a stack of like hollowed out squares on top of each other, essentially going in a spiral. If that makes any sense. But that's their whole aesthetic. You got this giant guy that carries this big staff and these massive shoulder guards that are his weak point until you shoot him off, and then his chest opens up to reveal that kind of like strand and energy like core that you shoot at. And this is only the first guy. They call it the Tormentor. In the final shape, they're looking to start bringing in an actual like full-on faction and different classification of enemies with them, including the first winged enemy that actually uses his wings to fly. It's basically going to be a bat with a gun, from what they explained. And I don't know about you guys, but I hear bat with a gun, and I'm like, okay, I'll check it out already.
It's hard to go wrong with anything plus gun.
Yeah.
Whole show, that's just the premise. Have a weapon, add a gun, that's the show.
What show is this?
Freaking Ruby.
Oh.
Yeah. It's also a gun.
R.I.P. Rustooth.
Oof. So yeah, Destiny's fun again. I'm very, very happy with the time I've already put into it. I've probably put in about 80 hours into it already since I came back. And I'll probably be playing it at least through the final shape again to see how that plays out and into the next year, and we'll see where it goes from here. But it's really, especially a game that you know so inside and out, it's really good to go away for a bit and then come back and still feel good. So I'm very happy with what I'm getting out of it, which is also why I haven't played anything like newish. Since we kind of are in the dead areas. I've started Lies of P. We'll get into that a little more maybe next month. So
yes, play the game. Play the puppet game. It's a good puppet game.
Good puppet.
Quick question for you, Trent. Is this hoverboard going to be your new hand cannon?
Funny you say that.
No.
We've been pulling that joke a lot lately because our friend Danny, who played with us back in the day and is probably the I would say the head honcho right now in the people that have come back to Destiny. He has been grinding a certain thing more than I grinded the Leviathan raid already, and has not gotten it to drop for him yet. So that has been a frequent running joke that has been going around the table again. They're like, God damn it, this thing's dropping. This thing's drop rate is less than the fucking Midnight Coup for goddamn Dragon. For just a little bit of background on that, basically the Leviathan raid, whenever Destiny 2 first came out, I learned that raid forward and back to where I could actually carry teams through it. And like I would say we're pretty good at games, but we're not like pro level or these people that figure out how to solo everything in the game.
Listen,
levels,
we're gamers. We're not gamers.
Yeah. So it might, like, some people will hear this and be like, that's nothing. Other people will hear it and be like, no way he did that, kind of thing. But basically, I would carry people through that entire raid and solo the throne room at the end just to have a chance at getting the hand cannon from the chest after the final boss. And if you know how dysfunctional getting a D&D group together, that was pretty much how it was to get a raid team together for that raid from my clan back in that day. And I literally ran people through that raid 33 times. Some of them were hard carries without getting the hand cannon. And I had finally gotten it after 33 tries. And it's just become a joke through the entirety of our friend group that has ever played that game. And currently, Danny, who is trying to get a new weapon from a certain mini dungeon, has walked, even LFGing to get a bunch of randoms, has gone through that thing 53 times now and has not gotten it. So there's a new punching bag for the joke going on. And the really funny thing is, he doesn't listen to this podcast, so it's fine. This won't get out or anything. He basically told me, I'm kicking you out of the clan, or like just as a joke, or like I'm disowning you, I'll never speak to you again, kind of thing, if you get this gun before I do. After doing that dungeon the first and the second time, I told him, well, now I'm just not even going to tell you if I ever get the gun, because I don't want you to feel bad if I got it. I got it after the second attempt, and I have not used it, have not moved it anywhere to take it out of my inventory to give them, like, even show that I've gotten it yet. I got it after the second attempt, and I will take that to my grave until he gets it. Because I am not letting him know that I got it, because he would feel so mad.
A rare instance of your D rank luck not ruining your day.
Yeah.
So, does he not listen to the podcast?
No, he doesn't.
Okay, well then we're good.
I hope you got like a personal note of when you got it, though, so that whenever he does get it, you can just be like, "Oh, cool."
Hey, go listen to podcast episode number 20.
That'll be the final thing that happens in Destiny 2 for you guys.
All right, well, that has been my talk about Destiny 2. We're going to do something a little different here, guys. Unfortunately, we don't all have the capability of playing Final Fantasy VII. And due to the fact that I'm not, but Walker recently getting a PS5, and him wanting to play the game, spoiler-free, he is going to be stepping away from the rest of the podcast in order for Smurf and Brady here to talk about Final Fantasy, whether it be the original, Rebirth, and like any spoilers that could involve that. So for Walker, who hopefully won't go back and listen to this podcast, and anyone else, this is your spoiler warning for Final Fantasy VII in any capacity at this point.
I guess before you dip, did you have any like loose general questions regarding it at all?
Yeah.
As far as like rough playtime?
I mean, I guess the most general question would probably fall down to, like, what do y'all think of the game so far? Especially you with your actual perspective on it being, like, a remake. How does it compare?
I definitely love the game. It's probably one of my, up in my top 5 games, personally.
Oh, sick.
For Rebirth. That said, in kind of the same vein as Remake, it is a little divisive to a degree, so, but overall it is a great game, and I think it makes Remake look more like a tech demo.
Oh shit.
Wow.
Honestly, I didn't really put it into those words, but that's a great way to say it, that it made the first one look like a tech demo. I also loved this game. I thought it was fantastic, and it expanded and improved on the first remake in about every way it could.
Damn, and people were frothing at the mouth for part 1 like I froth at fucking Outer Wilds, so...
I love part 1 still. It is also still a great game. However, if the more you replay it, the more issues you see with it.
Oh, I see.
Like, you definitely notice more issues on replays, and the game, both Remake and Rebirth, encourage replays because that's how you do hard mode difficulty.
I see.
And there's moments in Remake that are just like straight padding, and they suck. But while they suck, like, the music is killer enough, and it was new enough at the time that it's not really an issue. But you can definitely tell on replays, like, oh, this part
just like drags. Those cracks really shine through a lot more.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
a lot of it back then was also hardware limitations with PS4. PS4 at the time as well.
And so, Rebirth is kind of kicking ass.
I would say so, yeah. It's
Well, sick.
I think it does a lot better job at pacing too, even though it still has its own pacing issues.
That's genuinely fantastic to hear. All right, I'm going to get out of here so y'all can talk it more in depth. But, yeah, y'all have fun. Thanks for having me. Bye.
See ya.
And now we can begin to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the original, maybe even what was the first part of the remake called?
Remake.
Oh, just remake. Okay, well,
Yeah, there was remake. Oh, geez, what was the full freaking title? Remake, Intergrade, or Intermission, Intergrade, or something like that. It was a mouthful, but that was the Yuffie DLC.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, now that we are about to start, and now this is your final spoiler warning for anything Final Fantasy VII. Please, if you're wanting to play this game spoiler free, please take your leave now. All right, and as we begin to talk about it, unfortunately I haven't played it. I'm here along for the ride kind of thing. I don't know when I'm going to be getting a PS5 to be able to play it, so I'm going to leave the direction probably to you, Brady, here, so you can go into how we want to do it, although I will probably suggest that we should at least get a little bit about the original game from Smurf.
I was gonna start with general spiel, just to give a little background info. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the second installment in a series of remasters. I think remake is more accurate. That Square Enix is doing for the original Final Fantasy VII game that came out a time period ago that I do not remember. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came out on February 29th, 2024, was developed by Square Enix Creative and published by Square Enix. And that's the basic spiel. In Final Fantasy VII, you play Cloud Strife, an ex-soldier, not soldier as in someone fighting for an army, soldier as in SOLDIER. It's a secret government project thing. And you go through the realm. What's the name of the... It's not Midgard, that's the name of the city. What's the name of the whole...
The planet, I'm pretty sure, is just loosely referred to as Gaia.
Gaia. Yeah, you travel all around Gaia trying to stop Sephiroth and, just generally do super hero things. Not superhero things, hero things.
Just a little bit of fact checking there. The original game actually released January 31st, 1997, so I was not even a year old yet. Where were you with Brady?
It was what year? What date? 1997?
January 31st, 1997.
I was 4-ish months old at that point.
Jeez, that makes me the old one.
So yeah, let's next. Is there anything you want to go over before we go into anything with more depth, Smurf?
Not in particular, outside of got suggested maybe just a loose recap of what the original is.
Let's. I think that would be a great place to start. If you want to go ahead and recap, what was the original Final Fantasy VII like?
So it was a big technological marvel whenever it came out, because it was also initially made for the Nintendo 64, and that was when Square basically had a falling out with Nintendo, because they couldn't do their big fancy game on cartridges and required CDs, and Nintendo just didn't want to budge on it. So then they ended up hopping ship over to Sony and caused beef with Square and Nintendo for quite a while. Which is why from 7 onward, most Final Fantasy games, at least mainline Final Fantasy games, were explicitly Sony console games. The combat was your traditional, at that point, it was the kind of the standard time-based RPG mechanics that I want to say 6 primarily started, but it's been a minute since I played anything prior to 6. But instead of it being a normal turn-based mode, each character is assigned a meter, and that meter will fill up at varying speeds depending on speed stats, buffs, and debuffs. And once that meter is full, you're able to take an action. So you can hype somebody up on stimulants and haste spells, and then they can just beat the crap out of things and hit them like numerous times before the other thing can move once. It's a lot of fun. Made the turn-based combat more engaging. The reason for Final Fantasy VII requiring the CDs, of which it needed a lot of CDs, it was a 3-disc game on the PlayStation 1, and it was mainly because of the FMV videos that were the pre-rendered cutscenes. Those were very beefy file sizes, so it's kind of a joke that Disc 3 is primarily just movie files. The game was the first 3D Final Fantasy that they did, so that's why I earlier on kind of joked about how the characters can kind of look like Lego models. That's whenever they're in the overworld. Once you enter into one of the random battles or encounters, then the graphics get significantly better. You actually have a fully modeled out character doing attacks and actions and stuff. It looks great in those moments. But I know whenever I first played the game and having no clue any of the technical restrictions, I'm just like, why can't the whole game look like this? And it frustrated me a lot that I had to spend most of the time looking at these Lego people like wobble around trying to animate. But was easily one of the most impactful like JRPGs that I ever played growing up, and quickly became one of my favorites. The rundown that you gave of playing as Cloud Strife, who's part of the Super Soldier program Soldier, is still the same premise. You mentioned you weren't sure if it was more of a remaster or remake. It is definitely a remake in more ways than one, but we still don't know like all the answers to that yet because we're still waiting on part 3. They've done some changes to the plot, and I'm intrigued by them, but I still got to see how they stick the landing.
Interesting.
So this remake trilogy is still a very faithful remake in most of the ways that matter. However, you run into the usual JRPG problem of just plot dump at the end out of nowhere. So You'll play through like 90% of the game that feels like a faithful remake for the most part, but then you get into the like 10-15% of just new things that are just thrown at you at the last minute and you just don't know how to process it.
I know. I know what you mean.
So it's still a bit difficult to compare the two games entirely. Remake Part 1 isn't even all of Disc 1 of the original game. It's like a segment of the game that probably for most people was like a 7-hour, 8-hour stretch, and they turned it into an 80-hour game. But you start off as Cloud Strife, and you are hired by what is essentially an eco-terrorist group trying to disrupt an energy corporation / government power called the Shinra Electric Power Company. And their fuel source is basically draining the lifeblood out of the planet. And so as most of the members of that eco-terrorist group believe it's killing the planet, and so they're really trying to stop Shinra from doing all these horrid evil things and ultimately killing everybody. So that the whole point of the Midgar section is all of what happens in Remake Part 1. You are running around doing most of the things for Avalanche at the time, doing, you bomb a Mako reactor that is sucking up the lifeblood. However, the power company finds out and they start doing their own counter-terrorism things that is ultimately just even more shady terrorism stuff. To the point of dropping what is essentially an entire city on top of another city. And then they blame it on the eco-terrorists so they can get away scot-free.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the first game wraps up. Or the first remake wraps up.
Yeah.
Right? Or is right at the fall of the plate.
Pretty much. There's the escape from Midgar.
Right.
That kicks off where Rebirth essentially picks up. But as far as the original goes, you get found out. For me, trying to very quickly glaze over it, the eco-terrorist stuff is revealed to be more true than Cloud kind of thought. Cloud seems to be having some psychological issues. He is, for some reason, has loss of memory for like the past, I want to say it's like 5 or 8 years. He's got a gap in his memory, but it's not it's not full amnesia. That is in the original.
Okay.
I will be glazing over a lot of that stuff because a lot of that's going to be relevant plot info for Part 3.
Yeah.
But essentially, Cloud is drug along as he and his party basically get kicked out of Midgar from all the big terrorism stuff. And then from then on, it's revealed that Sephiroth, who was kind of his mentor back in the day, when he was an active duty soldier working for Shinra, that Sephiroth is not dead like he thought, and he's going around doing more shady crap, and Cloud is aware that Sephiroth is up to no good. So their new goal is to find Sephiroth and stop him from accomplishing whatever goal it is that he has cooked up, because they're not even entirely sure what his plan is. So once they're kicked out of Midgar, it's all just a hunt for Sephiroth, chasing him all over the continent and continents, because
continents.
Yeah, you travel the globe in its entirety in the original game. You only get, I think, 2 of the main continents in Rebirth, but
I imagine we'll get the rest in the next game.
There's a whole lot of side content as well, because it was a staple back in the day that you'd have an overworld to explore, and there was a lot to explore. I was never of the opinion that they would be able to do a remake because of how much there was to do in the original. Some of the main characters are actually optional characters, as weird as that sounds. Yuffie and Vincent are both optional characters. You can completely miss them. Yuffie is actually a random encounter enemy that you run into in the woods, and you have to beat the crap out of her, and then you enter into a dialogue cutscene, and you have to answer her questions in a very specific way, or she robs you and runs off.
Huh.
And then Vincent was a very similar situation where you had to solve a puzzle inside of a mansion and like enter a lock sequence code and beat a boss, and then answer him one of his questions correctly, and then he would join you. I know when I first played the game, I didn't unlock Vincent initially because I didn't know he existed.
Yeah, I was very confused when I came across that character because it was towards the end of the game, and I had my full party, and I was like, what is this? This is obviously a party member character, but he's not doing party member character things.
Yeah. And it's mainly because he is a highly important character, but they sidelined him for most of his plot. Vincent's the weird one that they made an optional character because he is very involved in the origins of Sephiroth and Shinra.
Interesting.
So even in the original game, there's a lot of side content that you can miss that is actually like very pertinent information. Yuffie is ultimately just a side character in the original. Yuffie is very much unimportant, which is kind of funny. They did her a big glow up for the remake trilogy.
Yeah, they sure did.
Which, as a nerdy little idiot back in the day, Yuffie was one of my favorites because I like ninja characters, so I was very pleased to see her glow up. A lot of people hate her character because she's kind of the annoying teenager character, and replaying the original when I got older, I'm like, yeah, I see why people hate this character.
Yeah. Playing Rebirth, I could see why someone would hate Yuffie's character. I don't. I loved it, but
she's way more endearing than she was in the original.
Oh, really? Okay. Because I did find her more endearing than anything else, but she's a lot. She's very...
she's a teenager.
She's definitely a teenager. So, let's talk a little bit about what has changed from the original to the remake. Because I know, based on what you said, one of the biggest systems that changed is like the combat and the way the characters are just moving around the world. Because there isn't really an overworld situation anymore. It's like a big open world, and you just run around and you fight in the world instead of going into a separate battle screen. And it's also not turn-based. Is there a turn-based mode? I don't think there is.
There is, but there isn't. That is what easy mode is. Easy mode, you can move your character around, but it will more or less kind of... Actually, do you control it? I never did easy mode. It felt weird to me. But it'll like... The game will kind of play itself to an extent to allow for people who aren't good at action combat games. So you're essentially only swapping characters and doing the menu items. And you don't have to run around and auto-attack and guard, essentially.
Oh. Huh. I did not play on easy, so I did not know that was an option.
I tested it out, and I like it as an option. I hated playing it.
Okay, fair. That doesn't sound that great to me, so I get that. But I do think it's good as an accessibility option.
Exactly. Like it's for people who aren't great at action games, because the game can be frustratingly hard sometimes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good story stuff that I wouldn't want people to miss if they're not great at action, so I love that. Yeah, so the combat is a lot more action-based. You do still get, like that charging gauge you mentioned. That's just how you access your special abilities instead of your basic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, there's also... Go ahead.
The auto attacks and guarding will actually raise that meter faster as well to incentivize you going in and moving.
The better you are at fighting, the easier fighting gets. Yeah, it incentivizes. Yeah, exactly what you said. It incentivizes you to fight well and use the system, which again is a great way to set up a combat system.
It's honestly probably my favorite action RPG system I've ever played, personally.
It's probably my favorite Final Fantasy, at least of the last several combat systems. Definitely better than 15, definitely better than the first remake. I liked 16, but I do think this is the best combat that Square Enix has brought us in a Final Fantasy yet. Also, just they really, really added a lot to the characters. Like, sometimes when you have ensemble games, you have your main character and then the other characters are kind of just there. In Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, all of the different characters have very unique playstyles and developed skills and character personalities. So that adds to the combat a little bit for me, at least, being able to swap out your team.
I would say the two strongest features that the remake trilogy has compared to the original is probably, one, the combat is number one for me. Like you said, every character is somehow unique and also somehow very balanced, and at the same time, everybody feels potentially broken whenever you understand how to play the character.
Yes.
The second would be the characters themselves. The old game, or the original rather, was people loved the characters. However, there's only so much that you can get by, again, with the Lego character animations and only text.
Right.
And some characters were ultimately just kind of caricatures. Probably barring a few of his very specific character moments, people poke fun at Barrett a lot for just being stereotype
Absolutely
Mr. T.
caricature.
Yeah, stereotype Mr. T. And the remake trilogy has done a fantastic job of fleshing out the characters, but in a way that I think everybody has more or less kind of envisioned those characters to be. How people imagined them in their head versus how they were explicitly like expressed in the game. Yuffie being probably the biggest glow up character wise, I would say, next to maybe Barrett. Barrett is so charming in the new game.
I played the first I never played the original 7. I played the first remake, and Barrett was okay. I liked him. I liked the gun ability because it lets me stand back. I like doing damage from range. And then in this second game, Barrett is now maybe my favorite side character, which I did not expect, purely because of the extra story stuff they gave him and the extra personality and the relationship he has with Cloud. It feels like they've taken this chance they made it into a trilogy, but they're not just adding fluff, they're actually developing the characters, at least in this one, and building the world and adding more detail to the story and adding to it, not just stretching it out for more money. I mean, they're obviously doing that, but they're adding worthwhile content, in my opinion.
Well, that content as well is expressed through those side quests. I naturally pretty well 100% the game on my first playthrough, unintentionally.
I'm with you on that. Yep.
I did hit a part essentially where the story picked up, and I was like, I'll come back to this because I know the game had chapter select once you beat the game because the first one had it. So I got to a point where I was kind of side quest burning out, and I wanted to see what was going on because I was getting real invested in the main plot. But other than that, I was just enjoying all of the character moments because they made all of the side quests tie into Cloud's interactions with the party members, which is not something that was present in the original game. You did still have some character interactions in the original game, but they were usually like, okay, if you have the character in your active party for this one instance, you may get like a paragraph of text out of them. And that was it. It was usually like one-word responses to a situation more than anything. Like there wasn't really, outside of main plot beats, there was never a whole lot of character back and forth. So that is easily my favorite thing with Rebirth's fleshing out of the world and characters. It adds a whole lot more context to the world that you're in. There's still some minimal world building in the original, but it's very vague. And granted, a lot of that world building has, for better or worse, been built up over the past couple years anyway with the Final Fantasy VII compilation works, which are a mixed bag, mostly bad in my opinion, but it's kind of like how a lot of people viewed the Star Wars prequels.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's how a lot of people view the Final Fantasy VII compilation stuff. There's a lot of cool ideas and some cool concepts, but overall, a lot of people think they're a bad idea, or were poorly executed. But having years of those games being in circulation, they can now flesh that out even better to incorporate them into the world, and it's fantastic. They have such a love for even the stuff that they know a lot of the fan base hates, but they still are doing nods and acknowledging that they're there, but not in a distasteful way. Sometimes it's just as subtle as like name dropping a character from a side content game. You're like, oh, like anybody who never played it's just like, okay, cool, random grunt character's name, and anybody who played the other game is like, oh, I know that guy. It's a cool head nod. Like Easter eggs all over the place, and
Easter
especially
eggs without
Rebirth.
it being like shoved down your face, where it's fun for the
Correct,
fans,
and some of them are very niche. My jaw dropped on the Test Zero enemy that you can run across. That one was wild, because that is essentially a debug enemy in the original game.
A debug enemy.
Yeah, it was not supposed to be in the... Yeah.
Like
it
Test
was,
Zero as in the devs made it a
yes.
test. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, that is a deep cut.
Yeah, and even the description whenever you scan the enemy was a reference to that too, because it was only in without using cheats, you could only run into that enemy in the bottom of the well in the Corel prison in the original Japanese release. And it was a very rare spawn rate. There was nothing else that was like in that well, but that's where you fight the thing in Rebirth as well. And the detailed description of it's like, oh yeah, this is a test monster that somehow escaped due to development oversight. And it's like it was hilarious.
Incredible. All right. So now that we've kind of given a general basic idea of the game, there are a couple more things that I want to go into. First, and this is one of the first things I sent in the group chat when I was playing this game, is that minigames are fucking back.
Almost to a detriment.
Almost to a detriment. I loved it just because if minigames hadn't gone away for as long as they did, I wouldn't have enjoyed this many minigames. The fact that I hadn't played a game with legit like minigames that had some time put into them, I was having a blast playing cards across all of the continents.
Oh yeah, Queen's Blood is fantastic.
Queen's Blood is the new Gwent, in my opinion.
They could easily make a mobile game app of that.
I would play a mobile game app of Queen's Blood. So much.
No, most of the mini games were really good and didn't overstay their welcome. There were two that annoyed the hell out of me.
Okay, which two, if you don't mind my asking?
Actually, kind of, sort of three, but I wrapped them into one. I didn't care for Gears and Gambits, and that isn't entirely due to the minigame itself, but mainly how it's presented to us.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. I had to Google which one that is.
Yeah, it was essentially you're doing the Final Fantasy, I think, 12 combat system, but unlike Queen's Blood, where they essentially like wean you into the system, you're just dropped into it and you're given a wall of text to read.
Yeah.
And it's just a steep learning curve, and that was the only one that was like a kind of a strategy game where, especially whenever I made it to the hard mode difficulty, I was just like, I'm not gonna bother learning to play this because I don't care enough. So I looked up a team composition and played through the hard versions of it that way because I couldn't be bothered. Like, I didn't find it enjoyable because it was just too much all at once for only like 3 runs of it.
It was, honestly, they put too much work into it. It needed to be a little bit simpler. It needed to be a little less...
There was, for how brief of a minigame it was, there was too much bulk to it. Which, it didn't have the benefit that Fort Condor had, because Fort Condor already existed in the Yuffie DLC. So...
Oh, did it?
Yeah, that is the main minigame in the Intergrade DLC that takes place between Remake and Rebirth.
Gotcha.
Which, Fort Condor was also a minigame in the original game, which played very much the same, but it's its own thing. So, it's wild enough that Fort Condor was a playable minigame. The other one that I hated was the Cactuar minigame that you play with Aerith and Yuffie.
Uh-huh.
Yuffie's was fine, I just didn't find it fun. But Yuffie is so broken in the game anyway, in a good way, that you can kind of face, even on the hard difficulty, you can kind of face roll your way through the Yuffie one. Aerith, on the other hand, was miserable. I hated running all of the hard missions with Aerith, let alone...
Gosh. Trying to do the physical damage ones with Aerith was... I hadn't done hard mode yet. I've only done, I think, medium is the...
It sucked. I got around to it, but I've never been... It's been a while since I was so frustrated at a game, and it was explicitly because I just didn't even... Like, I like challenge. I don't like it when the challenge isn't fun.
Right.
And I didn't find it fun at all. So those were the 2 main mini games that I was just like, no, I'm checked out with this. Because some of them are hard. Like the Brawl, the 3D Brawler mini game.
I hated the 3D Brawler.
That was
the one I hated.
That is a brutally difficult one that I do not have the capability to beat without pause scamming.
Oh, I was about to just say, the only way I beat it was by pause spamming.
Yeah, you gotta... My eyes are not good enough to be able to distinguish like 2 frames of a difference in an animation to react accordingly.
Of a Lego man doing an animation weird, which looks very similar one way and the other way.
The way that those low poly characters are made is still weirdly enough like a slightly higher poly version of their original FF7 overworld polygons.
That's what I figured. I figured that was a nod
it's pretty cool.
to
Yeah, that was very cool. But yeah, otherwise, the minigames were awesome. Some are more challenging than others. The Chocobo Flight one had one that was particularly tricky, at least in one segment. But yeah, oodles of minigames. Most of them were actually very good and didn't overstay their welcome. I loved the Chocobo racing. That was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm.
You get a few more maps in there and a little bit more detail. You could almost make a Final Fantasy racing game, like a small.
I believe they did largely base that one off of the short-lived Chocobo Racing mobile game. So that one and the bike mini game were at one point mobile games, essentially.
Interesting.
That both ended up failing for one reason or another.
Well, since we're talking about Chocobos, one other topic I'd like to cover is the transversal in this world, because this is an open world game, and you go different areas, different regions have their own open world map, so you go like region hopping and each region has an open area map. All of them are massive. It's all massive. And because it's so big, you get a lot of different ways to transverse in each region. Each region gives you a chocobo, which is unique for the region. Different colors, different areas have different colors of chocobo, and different colors of chocobos have different abilities. So like in the first region, you get a chocobo that can run up walls. The second region has a chocobo that there's one that can fly, there's one that can jump on mushrooms, there's one that can swim.
I say two of the chocobos basically didn't have any unique powers. There was a mushroom jump, there was the like swim flight thing hovering,
right,
and the rock climbing.
Gotcha. And the gliding from the Cosmo Cannon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That one completely flipped my mind, even though I just mentioned the minigame.
Yeah, it was the one for the coast that didn't really have anything going with it.
Yeah.
And that continent. But in addition to these birds, which you get gear for and you can customize them, it's very fun. You also get a couple of unique transversal things. The first one that I loved is you get a little duck boat. It's a big ATV that runs in the water too. And your whole party is just chilling in the back of this big boat with truck tires as you're driving around the desert. And I had so much fun just driving around in that. It was
big old ATV buggy.
It reminded me a little bit of Mass Effect, if you ever played the first one, the Mako. A little bit of that, but less janky.
Significantly more functional Mako that was also simultaneously less fun than Mako.
Yes. Well,
the Mako was so... I was going to say, I loved the jank of the Mako.
And there was one other... Go ahead.
The buggy is actually from the original game as well, as are, to an extent, the chocobos. Because the chocobos... There was an entire chocobo breeding mechanic in the original game, and you would breed your own chocobos, and you could get different colored chocobos that allowed you to traverse different portions of the overworld. And so the green chocobos allowed you to run over the mountain tiles. The blue chocobos let you run over shallow water and rivers. The black chocobo let you go over mountains and rivers. And then there is a gold chocobo that was a pain in the butt to breed, that basically allowed you to traverse everything, including open ocean, and it's the only way that you can get some of the most broken materia in the game. But you'd have to, in order to do that, you had to catch a chocobo in the wild, and kind of like a horde Pokemon mechanic, where you had to like kill all the surrounding monsters and then capture the chocobo before the chocobo ran away. And your chocobo had a random amount of stats based on like where you caught it. And then you would have to race it in the mini game, or in the chocobo racing mini game, to increase its stats further, feed it nuts to give it more stats, and then breed it with another opposite sex chocobo. And then you had a % chance of it being a different colored chocobo, and then it just got wild. You'd have to mix and match, like you'd had to breed a green and a blue to get the black chocobo, since it's the combine of those powers. And
right.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. It was time consuming. So they thankfully removed some of that headache and just gave us some.
I accept that. I respect that. I respect that they removed that process. They did have a whole little mini quest about like chocobo breeding and raising. That was a fun.
I think they may bring it back in part 3.
It wouldn't surprise me. I could see that happening. The other transversal mechanic is Sid, which is a staple character of every Final Fantasy. He's a mechanic-ish in all of them. In this one, he is also a pilot. He had kind of a fling with Aerith's mom, kind of, and now he feels bad, so he's offering free plane trips to everybody. He's how you fast travel from continent to continent. But eventually you do get the ability to not fly the plane because the wings get broken off, but you can ride the plane like a boat over the open ocean and transverse continents that way. And you can also find some unique areas and complete a few unique quests doing that.
So I had said that Yuffie had the biggest glow up, potentially. Sid, depending on how you look at it, is probably the most changed character in the game. Weirdly enough. Also, the way that he is introduced is the biggest deviation in the game outside of the ending.
I'm guessing you can't get too much into that without going into spoilers.
They're super mild, but yeah, I'll preface this with, like, these are minimal character spoilers for Sid, but I'm not, like, revealing any of his end.
Okay, well, I'm fine with that,
stuff.
if you want to...
Yeah, it's basically just how he's introduced is all I would get into for the original game.
Okay.
So there's an entire town that has been skipped over in Rebirth that they are saving for part 3.
Oh,
and that is
the Wutai stuff?
That's for Yuffie. That Wutai was all optional in the original game. They have expanded Wutai significantly.
Oh, that's interesting because getting into war spoilery stuff, it seems like a big thrust of this game is that Wutai and Shinra are going to war.
Wutai is a very notorious side quest that I'm having a lot of issues not explaining because I know that they'll be doing something akin to it in part 3.
Yeah,
but
sorry, I'll stop talking about it because it is.
Yeah. No, it's
spoilers in part 3.
For Wutai, yeah. There's just a very notorious moment that happens if you did that optional side quest that is, in my opinion, hilarious. But also, my friend that I was borrowing the game from kind of tricked me into the situation for it. And I got essentially stuck in Wutai for a very long time because I wasn't prepared for the thing that occurs there. So I was a bit upset with my friend for a little bit. But it's really not as big of an inconvenience as I'm making it sound, but I was also a dumb kid at the time when playing it, so...
Yeah, you always have to factor that in when you're talking about these older games.
Yeah. A lot of the things that I remembered being very hard, I'm upon, like, especially third replay, I'm like, man, how did I fail at this so hard?
Well, if you ever feel bad, remember one of my first video games was Pokemon Ruby. And I played that game for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I figured out you could save the game.
Oh, no.
And for like half of that, I didn't know what May was. So I was like level 30 before I fought May because I didn't realize that you could talk to her. I thought she was like a tree.
Incredible.
So I was just running around fighting level 3 Pokemon, and I thought that was what Pokemon was.
That's amazing.
No matter how bad you are as a game, you'll never be as bad as 6-year-old Brady playing
Circling back to Sid, because unfortunately, the nature of Final Fantasy, things will go into tangents easily.
Sure.
Sid is originally introduced in a city, or that's generous, a town called Rocket Town. It is a town built around a failed rocket.
Okay.
Intended for space. That is, in the original game where you run into Sid, it is the only place in that, like, overworld portion that you can go to, and you just kind of stumble into the town, basically. And I won't go into the details of like how you recruit Sid, but as far as Sid's personality goes, a lot of people did not like Sid, and I was not sure how they were going to handle him for remake, because he would be largely problematic for current demographics, I guess. Sid was for not beating around the bush, Sid was a crestfallen person who'd just kind of given up in life, and as a result was very abusive and would basically beat the woman who kind of take care of him in his home.
Okay. Interesting.
And he was basically like the stereotype of the blue-collar foreman who hates his life, is an alcoholic, drinks cigarettes, is a chain smoker, and just he's super knowledgeable, is skilled at what he does, but he's ultimately just kind of a piece of shit at home.
He's a shitbag. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
okay.
That was Sid in the original game until he goes through his character arcs and kind of fixes himself. I loved Sid for that because I've known a number of people who fit that. Also, it makes me feel very old now because Sid is supposed to canonically be 30.
Oh, no. I don't like that.
So, he got altered significantly for this game. Because, naturally, Rocket Town is not in Rebirth. The whole bit with the tiny Bronco is wildly different. I don't know how, again, they're going to handle that, but the tiny Bronco is fixed at the end of the game, so they can still do it again if they want, and then it can break again, I guess. Because the tiny Bronco is used as a boat in the original game, too. But they kind of... I'm going to steal a description from Maximilian Dude's videos, podcasts. Somebody in his chat described him as being turned into Han Solo, and that is pretty accurate. And probably the most tasteful way that they can make him an endearing, roughish character.
Completely retcon the shitbag that he was previously, so like him without feeling bad about yourself.
And they may still heel turn that. He could still be a complete prick once he's back in his hometown, because the only reason he has to be polite to us is Aerith and Rebirth, which he had no ties to Aerith or her mom in the original game. That's all added.
Oh, I like that change a little bit.
So yeah, I don't think he had a fling, unless I misinterpreted things.
No, he did not. I don't think he had a fling. I don't think that is what the game was trying to portray.
Yeah, he just saw her as beautiful and was kind of smitten with her.
Yeah,
is kind of what I gathered.
I think they were like friends or something, and he helped her out, or she helped him out, or something, and then he had feelings for her, but never really progressed. Was my understanding of the situation.
Yeah, we'll see how they land that one in part 3, because I'm not entirely sure on all that. A lot of stuff with Aerith's mom is still a mystery to an extent, even from original game context.
One last thing, because my computer is running out of storage space. And we've already been talking for an hour and a half. We should probably start wrapping. Obviously, no spoilers for part 3. Is there any major changes from the remake that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention?
Anything involving Sephiroth is largely different.
Oh yeah, that's right. He didn't show up until the very end, right? In the original?
Again, to try and dodge certain spoiler things, Sephiroth is largely elusive and is not present for most of the original game. Okay. You would see him, or what you think is him, around a lot, but you never fight him until the very end of the game. So anything involving Sephiroth is very new, and it's because of the implications that this remake is kind of a sequel.
Yeah, it does. I do kind of get it does feel like this has all happened before vibes to it.
It is. There's a cutscene with Red 13. If you do the date with Red 13 in the Ferris wheel, that hard confirms that back in Remake, Aerith and Red were capable of seeing the future until the Whispers ended up yoinking all of those memories and everything from Aerith.
Interesting.
It gets into a whole bunch of like plot theories, so it's a big old wormhole that we probably don't want to get into, at least for this. But it is my understanding, and we'll see how they stick the landing with part 3. I'm of the belief that this is a sequel that picks up after the Advent Children movie.
Okay, well, we'll save that, and when the part 3 comes out, we'll play that back to you and see if we were right.
Aside from the plot things, I will bring up the thing I mentioned earlier as far as like people who are wanting it to play as a normal remake and not as a sequel. I do think they still did a good enough job of preserving most of the details of the original game, outside of like what seems to be the 10-ish% that is largely at the very end of the game. Like you can essentially get a butcher knife and lob off the final boss shenanigans of both games, and it's very faithful to the original with like a few hiccups here or there and alterations. Rebirth had a few more deviations than Remake had, but
Rebirth had a little more room to make deviations too, though.
yeah, and I am amazed at how well they nailed the world travel. We touched it briefly, but I cannot believe that you can literally walk from one end of the continent, get in a boat, go across the ocean, and get into another continent, and walk around with essentially no loading screen.
Right. It is all... You can go from one end of the map to the other without looking at your character, except to get in the boat. But it's... They did the map very, very well. Obviously the whole travel thing, but just exploring the map and the designs of the map, I thought were also very well done, and making it interesting to get through and look at as you're walking through it. It was very scenic, if that word.
Yeah, no, it was
a video game. It was beautiful.
It looks very good. Things. I wish they had some more fun with like time of day, but it's fine.
I do wish they had more fun with time of day. I'm also okay without it. That's not...
I just think the way that the engine is, it does better with, like most engines, if you have more shadows. Most of the game seems to just, like, take place at noon.
Look better. Yeah.
Aside from the end combat stuff, as far as other character changes, Kate Sith, he's actually endearing and useful. He sucks in the original game.
Okay. I loved Kate Sith. I thought he was great.
There's so many people that didn't realize he was Scottish, which is hilarious.
His name is Kate Sith.
Well, to be fair, nothing was voiced, and most people weren't aware.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like a super common...
Yeah, most people think his name is Kate Sith, which apparently the English dub also made that error. It's an eternal internet feud on how to pronounce the name. I go back and forth. Because the actual pronunciation, I believe, is supposed to be like Ketshi.
Oh, yeah.
And even in the Japanese dub, they pronounce it Ketshi. It's only the American release that I'm pretty sure pronounces it Kate Sith. So go figure for that.
Yeah.
Oh man, there was another alteration that was pretty big, but I'm blanking on it. One that's less big, Barrett's backstory with Dine. That got expanded a lot, and I had mixed feelings on it. As far as expanded plots go, that is the one that I am most conflicted on. It still matches the like essence of it, but it's almost like too melodramatic, and then the whole Akira transformation I thought was kind of weird and dumb because none of that's in the original. But there's a harshness in the original game that does not entirely make it into Rebirth, because Rebirth has so much fun with its melodrama, which I'm largely fine with. But for example, with characters like Zack in the original game, Zack is also largely missable. People go through the entire game without knowing who Zack is, which is funny.
I went through the whole game and I still kind of don't know who Zack is, but...
That's fine. Zack was ultimately a kind of a loose afterthought whenever they made the original game. He got expanded upon in the compilation stuff. But he is implied to should be dead in Remake. And in the compilation, whenever you see him die, it's all heroic and romantic and how he's like dies. And in the original game, it's just like, no, like 3 soldiers walk up and just shoot him in the back.
Oh gosh.
Like it's just harsh and just
execution
moves. Yeah, it just moves on. And Dine's situation was very similar to that, only Dine didn't have any soldiers fighting him. It was just a 1v1 with him and Barrett that was very straightforward. I don't even remember if there was music or not. I think it was just like maybe weird dead silence as they just shoot each other.
Oh, I can see how that might have been a little bit more impactful than not having him.
Yeah, I kind of prefer But Dyne was also way darker. For, again, a little bit of a spoiler tag with before this. Dyne in the original game was so nuts. He has dialogue that implies that if he killed Barrett, he was going to find Marlene and kill her and then kill himself.
Oh.
Like, he was nuts. And then, like, after you beat him, he basically does this whole spiel of, like, he doesn't deserve his daughter, and he just jumps off a cliff and dies.
Huh.
That's how it is in the original. It's just that part I know is dead silence, and you just hear wind, and that stuck with me a lot as a kid. I was like, I think that was probably the first depiction of suicide I saw in media. That was wild to me.
Woof.
So I had mixed feelings on how Dyne was treated in the new one. It was still good, but it was a bit much.
Yeah. All right. Well, Trent, do you have any questions for us about Final Fantasy VII after that whole long conversation?
So, I only have like two things that I want to address, because there are a couple things I've gotten through cultural osmosis. The first one, the relationship between Cloud and Tifa in the new one compared to the old one is a lot more fleshed out and a lot more, and they go into it a lot more. Am I correct?
Kinda, sorta. No more than with other characters. The catch is whether or not you had the interactions in the original game that were missable. So a big thing that I love with the new, with Rebirth, you are running around the overworld with your whole party at all times, and it is fantastic. You are in combat only, like, essentially with 3 of them, and the others can kind of influence the battle minimally. But because of that, you get every single dialogue interaction and plot interaction that you should with those characters without fear of missing it. In the old game, it was kind of the same issue that we have with, like, Baldur's Gate, where, we're going to go and do a Shadow Heart's mission. Make sure Shadow Heart's in the party, because you can absolutely do Shadow Heart's mission without Shadow Heart in your party. And you miss all of that interaction. Yeah. That is how the old game was.
Gotcha.
So a lot of people missed a lot of stuff with how Tifa worked, how Aerith worked. They're unique character interactions. But most of the content of, like, Tifa and Cloud's interactions were still largely in the original game, up to and including the love triangle between him and Aerith and Tifa. And there's even, like, the old game even had an affection system the same way that the new one has, where depending on how you interacted in certain situations, you would get more affection with Aerith, Tifa, Yuffie, and, funnily enough, Barrett. Barrett's was for joke interactions, but was still funny. Yuffie's were also joke interactions primarily. But Tifa and Aerith were canonically the two that you would be able to woo in the original. And Tifa, depending on her affection stats, alters the implications of an end cutscene. So, like, I haven't seen anything that contradicts anything out of the original so far, outside of what is, like, explicitly new plot territory.
Okay. And then the other thing I had, honestly, if you haven't been spoiled at this point about this almost 30-year-old game now, about the whole Sephiroth stabbing Aerith thing, I know going into this game, everyone was expecting that would probably be the cutoff point for when this game ends to be ready for the next one. But the more radio silence I heard about it, essentially, I'm guessing, like, they've actually changed that. Either you haven't gotten to that point yet, or they've actually changed to a certain degree what happens in the story with that.
That is where it ends. However, it's incredibly confusing. So the radio silence is people are confused, don't know how they feel, and don't know what happened.
Okay, so they are just teeing it up for the third game then.
So, I'm of the opinion she is dead again.
Aerith?
Yes.
Yeah. I am also of the opinion that she is dead.
Okay.
It felt pretty clear that she was dead, to me. My opinion from the end of the game was that Aerith is very obviously dead, and Cloud is very obviously going crazy and seeing things, and that is why he is seeing Aerith.
I mean, it's not the first time he's done that.
Yeah. He also it could be just him connecting to the Mako and her being a Cetra going back to the Mako and the lifeblood of the planet and weird magic-y mumbo-jumbo he's seeing her ghost.
That's a whole bunch of shit that I don't understand because I haven't played either of the games yet. So.
That's a whole bunch of shit that I played both the games and still don't understand.
It's a whole lot of stuff that even if you know all of the compilation material, like we still don't know. I have my own opinions for things and I don't want to spoil them entirely. I am of the opinion that it is Cloud essentially going nuts and he is in denial and is deluding himself. But also, I think it's him under the influence of Sephiroth as well.
Yes.
Initially, I don't think it was that. However, I think Sephiroth has co-opted it for reasons, because it's complicated. But
yeah.
Okay, well, I do intend on playing these games at some point. I have to get a PlayStation 5 first. I was okay without the spoilers because I've had the original game spoiled, and I thought they probably wouldn't stray that much away from it. And I also feel that at least one of us should take the brunt of the spoilers throughout the year of certain games, just so that we can have these kind of conversations, just in case we want to include them in at the end of the year for our top 10. So, I think by the time the third game comes out, which, by the way, Smurf, you're fully invited to that podcast where we talk about the third game. I assume all of us will have played it by then, I hope. And
I'm hoping.
we'll see exactly how different it is from there. I'm not gonna lie, the fact that you told me that Final Fantasy VII's on Steam, which I don't know why I didn't think of looking for it, the original there. I'll probably go and play the original on Steam at some point soonish, because I feel like it's one of those gaming events that need to be that I should experience. So
Part 3 is going to be wild. That's all I can really hype up. Most of the cool shit that people remember from the original game, outside of like the plate fall, is everything that happens on disc 2, which happens right after Aerith dies.
Okay.
Which is right where part 2 ends for us. So we have all of disc 2 and 3 to go through in part 3.
2 and 3? Okay, so do you think they're going to make it only 3, or do you think they're going to make
it is a trilogy.
Just real quick, final thoughts on y'all's on the game. Like if you had to give a rating kind of thing, what would you do?
I was at a 10 out of 10 when I was in my honeymoon phase with the game. I will drop it to a 9 out of 10.
Okay. And Brady?
Kind of in the same boat. I think 9 out of 10.
All right.
I don't think I ever got all the way up to 10 out of 10, but I'm comfortable saying 9.
Okay. So yeah, a pretty good game, and hopefully I'll be able to enjoy that soon. Anyway, thank you all once again for tuning in to Joystick Frequency. Big thank you to Smurf for joining us for this session.
Yeah, great having you, man. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for letting me ramble incoherently.
Oh yeah, we needed someone to bounce off of Brady for this one, so I'm glad I reached out to you. Like I said, we'll pull you in for whenever we have the conversation about part 3. Thank y'all once again, and y'all have a fantastic evening. We're gonna sign off here. Not sure what we're doing on the next podcast yet, but we'll get it figured out, and we'll see you on the next wavelength. Say goodbye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.